Hey, Malti, the hero of the evening or the heroine. Come on. Hello.
Oh, sorry, I just realized I was on mute.
Hey,
Wow.
Hi,
yeah.
Malathi.
good to see you.
Yeah. So good to see you, Kate, after a long time.
I know. What, it's been a year? No,
Yeah.
more than that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Hey, do you guys hear a music? There's a background music going on, is it?
Malathi is the in-house DJ for the day.
He's just making fun of me.
Okay, just give me a minute. I'll just download the background and
Sure.
put it.
$25 people from our team have joined in.
Huh?
I'm so happy to see that. Before whoever is joining in is WIP team.
Absolutely.
The percent turn up of the group is achieved, guys. Tables can be joined in.
Okay. Madhuri, help me with the security. Love the backdrop. Yeah, Sushmita. Can we send you one? I think we should share it in the... Yeah, you have it, of course. Yeah. The rest of the folks. Put it in Unsplash. Madhuri or Santoshi, put it in Unsplash and just ask people to download it.
Yeah, sure, Karthik. I'll
Yeah?
just take the image, yeah.
Absolutely.
Shivani, can you send me the link directly, please? Yeah.
Santoshi.
I'm
Anybody,
recording.
just
It's
send
like
me
not
the link.
nice.
Please share that. Yeah, 2 minutes by event will start. Yeah.
Yeah, anybody.
There is a Canva link. You'll be easily be able to see it. Santoshi will just share it with you in a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Madhuri, I can't get off that enabling the waiting room.
So there's a mistake I did while setting up the meeting, which was saying enable waiting room, which I did normally, but I think they changed the settings to enable the waiting room continuously.
Oh. So you have given me a chowkidar job.
No,
Thank
you don't have to do that. One of us will take care of that.
I'll take care of it, Karthik.
Array, I'm just kidding.
I'm trying to switch that off. It's not going.
Okay, I will make Malti.
Jayashree has a lot of patience. She has a kid, so she'll let everyone in.
Guys, I'm having some issues with downloading the background, so that's why it's taking some time.
I'm sharing with you, Malathi, on DM.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Give me a second.
Just a heads up, since I'm recording the event, I won't be able to minimize my screen at all. It's coming.
Hey, Nishant. Welcome.
Hey, Shivani, can you send it as a JPEG or something?
1 second, Malathi. Shared with you.
I still haven't got it.
Did you receive it?
Yeah.
Is this fine?
Yeah, I'm just downloading. Give me a minute.
Yes.
Try again.
I really hope I'm on mute. All right, shall we get started, folks? It's 4:01.
Malathi, I'm sharing the lighter one with you also because you like a light background, right? 1 second.
Yeah,
See
no, I
that
think
one.
it's fine.
Yeah. That white one is also shared with you.
Finally, okay, I have it.
Nice.
There's one more you can see. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. By the way, team Women in Product, I know that when Karthik is around, nothing can go, on delay and time, and there'll be a lot of high energy. But really, thank you, and really love the way you guys have been on the social media and managed to garner so many registrations in such a short time. So, and thanks for, for Karthik to revive it again. We have
Pleasure.
had.
I
this
felt
time,
something was missing, and it's time. Let's do
Yeah.
it, Malathi.
Yes.
So folks are joining in slowly. So should we give it a couple of minutes,
I
or
would
should
say,
we
yeah.
just get started?
I think let's give it a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Karthi, why don't you tell about women in product community in the interim and
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
That's about 57 of us here. And thank you so much, that too on a Saturday afternoon, to kind of give up your nap and everything else that you could have done in this 1 hour that you're here. So we truly, truly appreciate your time, your patience, and most importantly, the enthusiasm to just be and belong in a community. And that's what I think is driving us. Despite having a very busy work days, we are still doing so much in the weekend. And I'm very stoked to introduce Women in Product Talks. And that's a sub-branding of Women in Products India. So everything that we are going to discuss about products, all these sessions will be branded under the beautiful umbrella of WIP Talks. And Malathi, you are none other than you who is inaugurating it. And thank you so much for making time and coming here. So as simple as, if I just need to put it in one line, Women in Products is a community. It's a not-for-profit community for women, well, and non-binary, but kind of treat it more like it's a place to learn and grow. It is to just discuss the specific issues what women face. So there are also so many men in this forum. Thank you so much for joining us and trusting us with why we have done Women in Products. So treat it more like a girls' hostel, which is the community. And here is a co-ed college where we can learn together, okay? That's how I would like to differentiate what we have done. And yeah, so in the hostel, you're not allowed, but come to the college and we can discuss more. And that's my way of putting it. And yeah, I mean, Women's Day was around the corner. We couldn't find a better way to get started. So here we are. I don't want to take more of your time. I want to give most time to Malathi and Shivani to kind of take it away. So yeah, they have so much in store for you. So I will be a fly on the wall and take it away. Shivani and Malathi, most welcome to the Women in Products and inaugurating our WIP talks for the evening today. So all yours.
Sure. Thank you, Karthi. What a beautiful analogy of giving it like a girls' hostel and a co-ed education, which we're going to have, right? So together we rise is what we think at Women in Product, as truly said by the leader like you. First of all, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone attending today's session on decision-making mental models for product managers. We are super thrilled to have with us Malathi, who is a seasoned professional with more than 2 decades of experience in the industry and primarily more than a decade of experience in product management. And she has an impressive track record of working with top companies like HCL, SAP, Dell, Intuit, and PayPal. Right. So first of all, I would want to also request to run a poll to see how many of us are aspiring PMs, how many of us are existing PMs, and how many of us are non-PMs, right? So I would request all of you to kindly keep on sharing your reactions. It helps us know how you are feeling during the sessions. Feel free to ask questions in the chats. Towards the end of the session, we'll be taking up the questions as well, right? So let me know once my screen is visible, Malathi. I would want to present the screen.
Sure.
All right, that's 76 of us. We are breaking Zoom today. Come on, folks.
I'm happy to break that record. I hope it crosses 100. So yeah, very soon. Is my screen visible, Malathi and Karthi? Yeah.
Yeah, Shiva, we can.
All good.
Yeah, sure. So yeah. So here is Malati's experience, which we can see. She has more than 20 years of experience in total, and she has 8 years of experience in engineering, 14 years of experience extensively into product management. She brings us a wealth of knowledge from the industry, and she is also sharing her expertise by mentoring startups at NASCOM. So it is an invaluable experience for all of us at Women in Products to learn from an incredible mentor like her. Thank you so much, Malathi, for taking out time in today evening, like over the weekend. And we are sure that we have some amazing interactive session lined up for everyone with you, right? So looking forward to it. I would welcome the opportunity to invite you to kindly give us a brief overview as to what today's session looks like, by starting with a brief introduction of yours as well, and also to an amazing community of Jobs for Her, wherein you're working as a CPO. And it feels as so great to see women leaders empowering other women, right? So over to you, Malathi. Yeah.
All right. So as I said earlier, I mean, I have been a woman in product in literal, like for many, many years now. But also this Women in Products as a community has been around for quite a few years now. And that's where I actually connected with Karthi and Padmini Janaki, who were some, she was, I think, part of the earlier wave of group that we had. And thank you guys for having me here. And I know that you kind of literally turned this around in the last few weeks. So excited to be part of it. And just a little bit more about myself. Thank you, Shivani, for a very elaborate introduction. But just to add a few things in the product world, thanks to the organizations where I've been working, I have had chance to work on some really big enterprise products, like, with companies like SAP. So I've done a lot of logistics, supply chain management products over there, a lot of technology products, given that I came from a technical background. And then I think when I joined Intuit is when I kind of, discovered the world of consumer tech products, where from, few thousand, I went into literally millions of customers using my products actively. So kind of, have had a very vast experience across fintech products and B2B to B2C. Now, coming today to what I do, I'm kind of more a freelancer now, and I'm a CPO at Jobs for Her, which is basically a platform which connects, again, very close to the flavor of women. So it's basically a recruitment platform by a woman and for the women. So it's about an 8-year platform which started with focusing on women returnees, but today it caters to all segments of women who are, have a professional career, and whether they want to look for that next opportunity, whether they want to looking for a mentor, or whether they are trying to be a member and give it back to the society. We are definitely a very highly engaged platform, which is basically catering to and a great way for women to kind of find the opportunities that they need as part of their career. And yeah, so a little bit about Jobs for Her over there. With that, let's move on to the topic for today, which is the mental models. Well, okay, this is definitely not something, Shivani, that I want to be a very one-way conversation. So I would love to see more chatter in, the chat. So keep those questions coming in, right? So when you think about a mental model, imagine, for example, if you are in a, train and the station is very nearby. As soon as you see the station, do you kind of jump out of the train? No, right? Something in your mind tells you that this is risky, right? So let's wait down for the train to come to a halt and then step down, right? So a mental model, when we think of it, I don't know how many of you are use mind maps as a tool, but that's a great way of representation of how our mind thinks, right? Over the years that we grow, there are those lot of experiences and memories that we make. And in our mind, basically, it kind of connects those little dots. And for example, we know that if we are going to a colder place, we look for the temperature, and we have to we carry those winter clothes with us in order to protect ourselves, right? And of course, probably you went and you did not realize that, it is going to rain also in that season. And next time you are doing a trip, you already remember that, because that's a memory that has got registered, right? So your brain is kind of constantly learning, constantly updating those dots. And so that what happens, you have those most important and relevant factors registered in your brain. Now, I know that we kind of pretty much take, from the smallest decision to say whether I should buy a X brand paneer or a that brand paneer, to the time when you decide, okay, this is how my product vision statement going to look like. During a day, we make all little kind of decisions, right? Now, I'm not going to boil the ocean here, because pretty much all the functions in a corporate world, or, as part of our daily lives, we are constantly making those decisions. So I'm not going to talk about so many different mental models, but just in context of folks who are in products, right? Now, this is a very, very cross behavioral role, right? So, okay, the poll is just updating for me. So now I see that most of us are product managers, which is good to see, so that I don't have to get into some of those basics of what is product management, right? But the point that I was trying to come here is that some of the key challenges for a product manager, whether you are a B2C product manager, you are a data product manager, or whether you are a B2B product manager, is that there is always a lot of ambiguity in front of you, right? And one of the things that you need to bring is bring the specifics, bring clarity for the stakeholders, for your team, and exactly to know what is the product that you're going to build, right? Now, in order to be able to do that, you need to, first of all, understand, consume, internalize, synthesize, and build interpretations out of that, and then kind of communicate to the folks around you to say, hey, you know what, this is what we are going to build. So if I kind of talk about that, when we talk about these mental models, and I would like to give, some frameworks, I probably don't have like a list of slides, but I have shared some resources with Shivani, wherein if you go, you'll find a lot of references to those frameworks, but you will find that I'll keep talking about, hinting about those during this conversation today, right? So when I talk about mental model, right, there are a lot of basic things that we continue to use, and probably at times you may not know, oh, this is called this kind of a framework, but sometimes when you read about that framework, you said, oh, this is exactly what I do, right? So think of
maybe
mental
the
model as a
jargons are something which we don't know, but exactly is what we are implementing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So as I said that, this is a construct which is used to make sense out of a complex reality, breaking it down into more smaller components. And that helps you to kind of this. And like this is one of the most common framework for this is what we call as the first principle design thinking, where the point here is that go to the most basic thing. For example, I don't know how many have any of you used tools like 5 Whys? Probably would love to see that in the chat. Anybody has used a concept like 5 Whys? Yes.
We can fall around first principle thinking. Maybe we can do that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So if you look at, and there was a beautiful example, and this is going to be there in one of the references that I share. How many of you know about Southwest Airlines, right? That is one of those airlines in the US, which has been constantly profitable. Now, one of the reports that I was reading, in fact, while looking for some case studies for this conversation today, it was so beautifully common that when your anchoring point, the primary problem that you're solving, what does that anchor from? For example, when you hear about companies which continue to stay very, very relevant and continue to build like a startup even after 30 years, 40 years of inceptions, a company like SAP, a company like Amazon, a company like Intuit, right? One of the things which is very core to them is what they call as customer obsession, right? Or customer empathy. And one of the things that I was, as part of first principle thinking that we need to do is that, of course, you have a whole ambiguous problem, you have a complex problem, which you need to kind of break it into the smallest component. One analogy of that, or another way of looking at, is that before you decide this is the feature that I need to build, you need to kind of step back and question, what is the problem this particular feature or this particular product is going to solve? customers, do they really need it? Will customers be willing to pay for it? So this is kind of going back to those fundamental ethics of what do I want to do? So if I go back to the example that I was talking about, Southwest Airlines, what they said was that we are building a company which allows our passengers to fly, people to fly. Versus there were beautiful quotations that when you look at some of the other airlines, for them, it was more about a business model. So how did Southwest go about doing it? They were basically looking at that when our customers want to fly, what are the basic problems? And some of the products that they came up with, for example, they had a point-to-point travel. They had only one class. There were no business class separate, economy class separate. There was only one class. So when they kind of put the customer in the center of it, the products or the manifestation of the products was very, very different than when you kind of put a very the business model is more focused about purely the business objective, right? So first principle thinking basically talks about what is that core point, what is the key problem that you're solving. And one of the examples that I was talking about was the 5 whys. So when we go back to the point of mental model, see, your mental model is basically nothing but just a toolkit which comes up with a lot of different frameworks, which continues to sharpen with more and more experiences that you build, with more and more situations that you've handled. And it tells you that, okay, and we will talk about some of those cases, in the upcoming sections, that where could be using some of those concepts. So primarily it is leveraged for these mental models are leveraged for your problem solving. You have a problem in hand for which you want to build a product. How do you go about doing that? Second one could be your decision making. As I talked about, what should be the color of that button on your home page, to the time, what should my product roadmap look like, to the time, how do I, build this consensus decision with my stakeholders. And then you get into the system thinking again, right? How do you go about implementing it? What should be the structure of the system or the process that would help about it? And the last part of that is that communicating. When you're communicating to your leadership, when you're communicating to your investors, right? What is the problem you're solving for them? What are their needs? What are their perceptions? So it is a lot about storytelling. So how do you kind of build that story? How do you kind of figure it out? What will help them to, be aligned to you? So those are different ways where we kind of talk about today, where mental models can be applied.
Sure. Thank you, Malathi. This was such an overwhelming and detailed view of how our session is going to look like today. As you rightly said, so while doing registrations, we had, requested people to put in their queries, questions to us, and we will be addressing. So the format of the session would be very open-ended, right? We would be taking up the topics and we will be real-time interacting on the, situation so that it's more helpful for people, right? So we would be taking each bit and piece of what Malathi has spoken currently, and we would be speaking about all those aspects in detail one by one. So starting with is my screen visible? Yeah. So first of all, Malathi, there has been a lot of transition from what the role of PM used to be earlier, right? A decade ago, and what it is currently. As you were saying that, PMs have to see all the nitty-gritties. If I can say in one line, it is like 360 degree view of the entire business is something which PM needs to understand, right? And he has to do that in the industry, no matter what framework, whatever business model is there. But then the role of PM has actually transitioned a lot from what it was earlier to what it is currently. So what are your view on this particular intersection of the roles and the categories which comes to PM, and at times they struggle with it? We will be taking all these one by one, but would just like to have an understanding from you as to what the role of PM kind of looks like. It would be very helpful for the aspiring PMs who are the part of the 60% of the population over there here. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shivani. I mean, if I have to really say it in one line, I know probably not
in
the
interest
best
of
way.
time, I can talk to you for 3-4 hours as well, but I know interest of time, we have to cover all the topics, so that way. So yeah.
Yeah. So, if I have to really say it in one line, somebody told me this, that, ideally a PM is basically nothing but an orchestrator. And you're right, with the evolving technology, with the evolving user behaviors that has changed, right? For example, 10-15 years back, there were no smartphones. Now there are smartphones, right? Earlier, I would just address that, there is a B2B customer product types, product manager types, and there is a B2C. But today, if we have to look, we are looking for people who come with certain specialization, across vertical, across horizontal. Now, today, we probably have a mobile PM. We probably have somebody who's a fintech PM, when you kind of go vertical. There could be a data PM. You may have somebody called as IoT PM, right? So the complexity has kind of evolved. One is the technology and the trends around the consumer behavior. So, and especially, I would say the other dimension is the offline and online channels kind of getting merged, and with an omni-channel kind of a presence, the complexity of this particular role has definitely changed. Now, if I really talk about software product management, PM is basically not even 2 decades old. If you look at FMCGs, if you look at BFSIs, they have been kind of doing it for automotives and all that. They are kind of doing it for many years now. But again, just kind of coming to here, the complexity has definitely, the kind of complexity also, I would say, for example, if it is a compliance product, we probably are not talking about some of the other stakeholders like compliance team, legal team, localization teams, for example, when or even a globalization aspects that you kind of talk about. So I would say that as these lines are kind of getting blurred, we are on the driver's seat. We are the orchestrator, or somebody actually told me this line. Our product manager is nobody but somebody who kind of keeps removing the bottlenecks. You are like literally, you have to just do the jhadu, and you have to make sure that your team is able to make progress.
I couldn't agree more to it. So such a beautiful metaphor for all of us today, in the evening. So thank you, Malathi. I think it very well describes for the emerging role of PM, who is actually, and as a PM leader, you would know it when you're a veteran in the industry, right? So the expectations from the PM has increased also, to a very great extent. The demand of this particular job role has increased, and there is a reason behind it, because it is more towards, building the product, knowing the user experience and everything in detail. So moving forward, would want to understand like a basic overview, like what are the tips to have like a robust model for a decision making? Like what is the best tips and practices you would want to share that, what is the best practice which one should have for having an effective, mental model for decision making that way? So yeah, over to you.
Right. I think, see, I mean, if there is a situation you're doing for the first time, I would always say that, of course, there are these frameworks like the ISPMA framework or pragmatic framework, especially the organizations which are new into product management, right? So that kind of already gives a structure to me as a product manager when I'm kind of doing it. But believe me, guys, one thing which is there is that there is learning in every activity that you do, right? So it is really possible for us to leverage on, of course, our experiences, our, the quotient of relevancy or the important factors which are important for a product decision kind of constantly get evolves. But I would say that to go with, first of all, getting to understand the perspectives, right? See, as you said, just kind of connecting it back to the previous slide, we are almost in a day where our context switching happens big time, right?
And industry priorities also switch big time, and then the PM gets frustrated. That's a very big problem. Yeah, real-time problem. Right.
Yeah, I mean, my calendar looks very, very colorful according to the teams with whom I make, whether I'm kind of building versus buying something. Am I trading off a decision to, faster time to market versus, the cutting corners for my feature list that will go out? There is a constant amount of decisions that is making. But how do I decide, where do I have to build? So like one thing which I definitely say is that there is a lot of literature available. I'm kind of coming to address the part that you asked, that how do you build these robust mental models for decision making, right? One is that as a product manager, I do feel you need to do a lot of writing, right? No matter what, even if I'm sitting in a meeting like this, I will sit with my notebook, because I always believe there is always something good that I learn from every meeting that I'm in, right? And not only from other product managers, fellow engineers, salespeople. So as a product manager, I would say, keep your notes, keep documenting that you learn, because, and I know Karthik can take a complete session just on talking about that. How do you kind of build your mental models further from here by documenting and probably putting an AI on top of that to help you to optimize. And just
she talks about AI a lot. Yeah, she
She's
does.
a-
Yeah, she does.
You just tell her that this is the kind of decisions, and she will say, okay, these are the 5 things from my arsenal that I will give you. Go and try this out, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, just coming back to the robust mental models that I talked about, I would say in the early days, trust on the notes, listen, right? That is, see, one of the important input for forming your mental models is listening, right? So when you
Malti,
are,
as you say this, I would like to say to the audience, whosoever is having their notebook, well, good, congratulations. If you don't have, go and grab the notebook, make the notes. These are the piece of information. These are like, coming from Malti, it's really valuable. So you should note it down during the session. It will be valuable for you. At the end of the event, you would, when you would see your notes, you will be able to see that how much of gyan I have got, which will be really helpful for solving real-time problems. Sorry to cut you, Malti. Please go ahead. Yeah. I couldn't resist myself saying everyone to get get their notebooks. And in fact, before the session, I had mine as well. So yeah. So yeah. Guys, please go ahead. Yeah. Please, Malti, continue.
yeah. So the point that I was trying to say was that for example, when I try to go and look at some of my feed, in the professional social media like LinkedIn and all that, there is a tremendous amount of content out there, written videos and stuff, which kind of talks about a variety of frameworks, right? And one common question that I get from my students is that, ma'am, which framework should we memorize? Shall we do a RICE? Shall we do a Kano? Now, it is not necessary for you to kind of, use all those frameworks, because a lot of times when you get into an organization will have their own ways of kind of identifying that how do you build those decisions and what are the frameworks that are being recommended. But one thing which I definitely help, I would say, is, especially there are a lot of aspiring PMs here, there are a lot of early stage PMs here, is that leverage on these frameworks to understand the context, to understand that how do you apply these first principle thinkings, like going deeper into the customer problem statement, understanding, right? Customer will never tell you that this is what, they will tell you the symptoms. And like a doctor, the only thing you need to do is that you need to run those diagnostics, you need to run those assessment questions, right? Very, very open-ended questions, and observe your customer, right? Just to understand that how do they do the work today and what exactly is their pain point. Right. So guys, that is really important. The other point that I would say is that you need to know how to extract the signal from the noise, because typically when you would be looking at the data, you build such beautiful dashboards and all that. But the reason I'm asking you to apply these first principle thinking, apply some of the leverage on some of these frameworks, is that it helps you to cut the chase from the noise. For example, design thinking framework is extensively something that I use, building those, affinity diagrams and stuff like that. That really helps you to absorb things and kind of build products that will be relevant. So using data as in your lever is another very important aspect of your decision making. So the point that I was saying was that frameworks could be a great starters, but do not and they are great enablers for you to take your decisions. They are not going to do the work for you. If you say that, okay, I have used the RICE framework and I know exactly how to build the product, it kind of evolves over a period of time. Maybe the first time when you, even if many of you probably work in agile setup, right? In your first few sprints, you will not even know what is the velocity that you're achieving. How much of a work are you getting done within a particular sprint? It is the same thing. So your mental models, knowingly or unknowingly, you are constantly absorbing from your surroundings. It are kind of constantly building on this. And I would say that leverage some of these popular frameworks. For example, in a discovery phase, I would recommend some of the tools that design thinking provides. I would recommend the 5 Whys. Those are some excellent tools. Thankfully, today, you guys already have tools like Miro and Figma, which kind of helps you to, some ready to use templates, and how to do brainstorming.
Like to everyone. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. It is loved by everyone that way. So, yeah.
Yeah. In my days, I would use pen and paper only for a long time, until I, for example, to do my designs, I moved into balsamic.
Paper wireframing. Balsamic,
yes.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, I think I have used only pen and paper. So I would say, applying these first principle thinkings, leveraging some of these frameworks which are very popular and available, and continuously practicing to use data as a very important lever combined with intuition and creativity, right? So and go beyond what your customer tells you very obviously, because if the customer would, it's like, I don't know if how many of you read the quote that was there. Hammer is not, once you have the hammer, you are not looking at every problem like a nail, right? There could be screws, there could be different things. I think the another example, which is very, very popular, is that the customer asked for a 1-inch hole, not a drilling machine, right? So, it is any mental model is kind of, it is kind of very subjected to what is a kind of problem you have, context you have. So, and don't feel shy to go and ask for people who probably would have done that. Now, again, probably I can again talk about Women in Product has some of these mentorship cohorts and you are in a wonderful community, right? So lean on each other to learn how to, how if somebody has, already solved that kind of a problem.
Yeah, very right. And that's what community is more about, collaborating with each other and learning from each other. Wonderful, Malathi. Let's move towards the follow-up, thing on creating the robust mental model. Let me know once my screen is... Yeah. So we spoke about the creating robust mental model, and data comes as a very integral part, right? So first of all, we need to do the user research. And one of the most, frequently asked question was that, how do we, figure out that what is the right sample size for our user research? This is also one of the things which people, at times struggle with. So how do you suggest that, what should be the approach? What should be the thinking process for a PM to have a right sample size for research? I do understand it would vary from industry to industry, right? So in general, what is your view towards it? It would really help people to, have a better understanding towards the same.
Right. So this is, I'm assuming we are talking about user research, right? So see, typically user research, when you're doing it, first of all, I would say, from a sizing perspective, I mean, you have to make sure that you're doing both qualitative and quantitative user sampling, right? Because imagine if you have, for example, one of the products that I talked about, it had about 25 million downloads, and we had about a 10 million customer base of monthly active users, right? So for that, if I say, okay, I'm going to talk to 5 customers and I'm going to take a survey with 50 customers, okay, do you really think that it kind of gives you that, very inclusive perspective or not? So I would say, depending upon, the B2B product that you have. So one great way of doing your, research is that, of course, unless you're kind of looking at a big problem that you are kind of solving. Okay. So let's talk about, a big idea that you're working on. So I would say, once you kind of get started, first of all, depending upon what is the, addressable market, or with, if it is a 0 to 1 kind of a product, I'm sure you have a big assessment of how much is your SAM, but you probably still want to try small with, what we call as our innovators, right? Those are the people who kind of are willing to be on this journey with you. So if it is a B2C customer, I would say at least make sure that at different points of time, whether it is during the qualitative research or the quantitative research, during the product conception phase, or the ideation phase, or when you are kind of building up your MVP, it should be like a concentric circle where you probably get started with the, maybe 40 people. I'm talking about a B2C product with a fairly large, let's say. Make sure that over a period of time, you're talking to at least 40, 50 people. You are doing a quantitative research of, reaching it out to maybe at least 2,000, 3,000 people. Because I think that, and something which is kind of very diverse cohort, make sure that, it kind of includes all the ICPs that you have, all the target groups to whom you look to reach out, right? So it should be a good diverse sample, segmentation. And I would say, initially when you start, of course, if you continue to just do, after a certain size that you have reached, you will see that you are already able to devise certain patterns out. You already have some great insights. And after a period of time, you'll see that there is nothing new insight which is coming up, right? That is also a great indication to say that, hey, you know what? I think I have all the basic insights which I need from this particular cohort. So I would say those should be some. And once you kind of get started, the next thing would be to continuously improvise in through experimentation with a feature flag or with a rolled face, where you can kind of continue to expand into your pool. But I would say make sure that you have at least 1 to 5% of your customers as part of your sample size incrementally, maybe not at the first iteration.
Understood, Malathi. So basically, we spoke in very detail as to how should we work on the sample size of the data, but we do understand that the data is everywhere, as this just says to us, right? And at times it becomes very difficult for a PM to ensure and assure what data is accurate. Accuracy of data also becomes a very big problem. It's one of the major issues which leaders also face at times. Hive not giving the data properly, like the n number of things which comes up. So how does a product manager, should have a view in order to, kind of rely on accurate data, and what importance does data has in their decision making? So this was also one of the frequently asked questions, was there
Yeah,
specific data? So
yeah, I mean, now today we all are just sitting on top of data in all sizes and all formats, and
right.
Data is the new soil, data is the new gold, whatever, we have all
Right.
the kind of sentences floating around us, right? So there is absolutely no second thoughts on that we all need data in order to build our hypothesis, in order to validate that, what we are building, customers are liking, ready to pay for it, and these things, right? So there's just no two cents about that. Now, as I said, usually we will have a lot of noise, and one of the key things as a product manager we need to be able to do is that extract out of that noise. Yeah.
This is when you gave the overview of the session, you said that extracting noise is very important. And so guys, if you are listening it very properly, you'll be able to figure out that we are covering each and every aspect of the session. And it is very important to extract noise and the unnecessary information which is there and not to process it. Right. So how do they identify that, Malathi? So basically, as a PM, they struggle to, put it across. So is there any specific way you would want to give a tip for people to have data handling, some kind of process or tips or whatever you would want to share?
Yeah. So I would kind of, first of all, kind of take it a step back a little bit, right? I mean, a lot of the context of the data that I'm looking at is that, what exactly am I looking for, right? So I think one of the key things is to defining your problem in terms of what is your hypothesis, what are you looking to solve for, what is the information, why are you seeking that information? So the why part of it is, first of all, very important when you are seeking data, right? And when you kind of constantly question that why, that has to be also be aligned. For example, let's say as part of my organizational strategy, my product is contributing both for growth of the users and the retention of the users. Now, when I'm talking about, and that is why this why part, in terms of what is the data that I'm looking for that, it is very important to tie it down to what is the why. And when I'm talking about I'm contributing, that means I'm expecting certain number of user growth every month, every week. And at the same time, I want my users to come back to the product, right? So that is number one, the why, because that also sets up the context that anything that I'm going to release out, or wherever I'm kind of, putting my net of seeking the information, that for the why that I'm looking at, what are the indicators, right? I mean, and again, I would say this is a learning process in itself. Initially, when we try to track data, we want to put our instrumentation on anything and everything, right? We want to capture the MAUs also. We want to capture the, every single, should I look at a mouse? Should I?
We would want to see, yeah.
Yeah. So is it really contributing? So but the other aspect here is that in terms of the what you're looking at is also kind of tied up to the North Star metric that your organization has identified, right? And typically when we go with the North Star metric at an organization level, then I will have the OKRs for each of the BUs, which will then trickle down into the product strategy. So if overall my product's KPI is this, yeah, then how is the feature, how is the idea that I'm conceptualizing going to be contributing to that? Now, translating those specific KPIs that I've identified, that would help you to kind of identify that this is what I'm kind of seeking, right? Now, again, there could be a lot of overlaps. Is this something that you're targeting from a certain cohort, right? There could be your high value customers. There could be customers who come in bulk, but the average order value from those customers is, let's say, very, very small. So what is the context, right? And what exactly you are trying to learn over there? So I'm kind of tying it back to the North Star metric. I'm kind of tying it back to the why. I think those are the aspects. And again, I would say, as much as possible, qualitative and quantitative, the marriage of that kind of give you much, much deeper insights than fairly sometimes looking at the numbers, because you may not be having the context, right? And I would say bringing in the necessary folks who kind of understand how to unpack that information. It's like a lot of time, onion layers, whether I should look at an operational metrics, whether I should, right? So you need to get the context. So have the right set of people to decode what exactly does it mean, and kind of constantly iterating, responding to those data points is a very important. Again, I would say, always take any kind of data with a pinch of salt, and that is where you're marrying to the qualitative metrics is important. Give value to the knowledge that you have built in that industry or in that product. So put in a little bit of gut, in terms of the context of customer empathy that you probably already have, and then putting your creativity. It is also important sometimes to take that risk. You have that leap of faith. You might be changing a big user behavior. For example, before nobody ordered a taxi from their phone, right? So it was a brand new habit that we introduced. So there are times when we need to take up that leap of faith to say that I know this is what my data say, but my hypothesis is that this will work. And constantly experiment it, learn more from it, iterate. Not working, it is okay to close it down or do something differently, but constantly responding to that data is important. But please also take your gut, your knowledge, your creativity aspect, your intuition, both, and also qualitative aspect to kind of use that. And there is one ladders to inference framework, which is brilliant. It talks about what is the values that you should consider, what are the assumptions that you have made, what is the kind of risk that you anticipate if you want to roll that. So putting all these things together is basically how a product manager builds up their mental model, while taking a decision, whether it is to build a feature or whether it is even to say no to a stakeholder.
Madhi, there is a question in the chat box. I would quickly like to take it up. It is related to what we're talking about. Is there a healthy ratio of sample size versus MAU for the user research? I think Akanksha has asked from the audience. If you could just help answer that.
Sample, can you repeat the question again?
Is there a healthy ratio of sample size versus MAU for user research? Is there a healthy ratio of sample size? So by sample size, I think we were talking about creating a right sample size for user research and monthly active users. So basically, say as you were giving the very right example that 25 million users hai, but मैं अगर data set 10 million का लेके 10 लोगों का user research करती हूँ, तो how practical it is that?
Yeah. So I don't know, probably Karthik, feel free to jump in here, but so see, I think it kind of is a little contextual. For example, when I'm in a growth phase of a product, right? And the kind of controlled rollout that I would have done, I am actually expecting on what I'm testing, for example, or whatever I'm experimenting, what is the kind of success metric I have put down? What is my hypothesis? That is a big determining in terms of what is the MAU number that I'm expecting over there, right? If I'm doing something very incremental, there could be a very limited traction that I would say. See, sometimes it is also very linear, right? You do more marketing, you will see a very organic number of people coming in. But when you are in a growth phase, you're probably looking at trying some experimentation where you actually expect a non-linear growth. So your sample size, your MAUs, maybe in some early stages.
It depends upon the stage the business is, whether it is in customer acquisition stage, growth stage, that would also matter.
That would also matter. And what is the sample size that you have rolled out? What exactly you are testing? Maybe in certain cases, when you talk about few hundred customers, you need probably even 5% means those are those high value customers. So I'm kind of slicing and dicing the success ratio that way. Whereas in some other cases, even one blip, 0.25 blips of difference also, if I'm able to make, that would mean a revenue of, let's say, 10 million for me. So that context is kind of slightly different. Please, Karthik, add to it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Malathi. You have kind of covered it. I would just add on top of it. So your research canvas determines what kind of study you're going to do,
Correct.
whether it is a qualitative one or a quantitative one. So what facet you're trying to understand? Is it a behavioral facet? Is it attitudinal? Is it primary? Is it secondary? So these are all different. There are about 8 facets in research that we kind of look into. And especially your research objective is to understand deeply, richly about your customer, then probably you're going the qualitative route. When you're going qualitative, and if you're going to get rich data, I wouldn't say a sample size more than 12, because you're going to, kind of be overwhelmed with the amount of data that's going to come at you. So irrespective of your MAU and DAO, even if it is a 250 million MAU, it is just 12 people who will actually come and tell you what is that they are going through. And that is a great starting point. So, and also determines like how Malathi says it from a product perspective. It could be a product problem solution fit, or a product market fit, or a business model fit. If you are in a problem solution fit, I think you should go deeply into the qualitative. If at all you're trying to form ideas, then you are going the formative way. If you're going to validate an MVP, then it is a validative study. So many factors determine what kind of study you do, and determining the number of users comes from the type of study that you do. So probably we will have a session. I think our next speaker is going to be just on research methods and how to really bring data and all the way, convert it into an insight. So I would kind of start looking at it from a contextual point of view, Malathi, if that makes sense. That's
No, absolutely. I mean, for example, very recently, for example, at Jobs for Her, we were doing some user research, and exactly as you said, Karti, I mean, we were basically talking to our women candidates across different cohorts, women in leadership, women in tech, women in restarters. And we actually realized we had actually about total of 22 women across these different cohorts. But I think after about 16 or 17, we realized, that the patterns, of course, there were some very specific needs and pain points for each of these cohorts. But when we were looking at things which were across the sections that we were trying to validate, I think after 8 or 10 customers, we started seeing that the insights were getting just blurred, and we were not really learning a lot of new things in that particular space. So yeah, I mean,
yeah. And they say, no, when you're getting repetitively the same thing, you can stop your study.
Absolutely.
So I think that's what you're getting. Awesome. Thank you, Malathi. Continue, Shivani. Sorry to, kind of come in between.
No, it's always great to collaborate, and the discussion went more deeper. So it's always good. So we have discussed about data. We discussed about user research. Now coming to the other aspect of it, what are the effective toolkit and frameworks required in decision making for creating mental models? If you could just give a highlight towards it, it would be very helpful for the audience. That way.
Yeah, sure. I can probably add on to it. See, again, as I said, this is kind of differs. This is actually, these frameworks can be sliced and diced into multiple ways. For example, if you are at a strategy level, you can use something like a product lean canvas method, a value proposition canvas method. But when you are building a product roadmap, you think a lot about prioritizations, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm probably just going to go with the phases of the product life cycle and talk about some of the frameworks, right? I mean, during the product discovery and the design phase, there are a bunch of tools which are available in your, first principles thinking, design thinking framework, which basically talks about, jobs to be done framework, which basically the whole idea of your product discovery is, as in some of the previous question both I and Karthi spoke about, get into the crux of the problems, that what is the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So the more you go deeper, more insights, more this thing. So I would recommend the jobs to be done framework. I would refer the design thinking frameworks, 5 whys. These are some brilliant, toolkits which are available, which helps you to get started, right? That's number 1. Number 2, when you get into the product development, right? In the product development, I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is that, okay, how do I get everybody's alignment? So there is a brilliant stakeholder management framework, which basically talks about influences versus power. You need to kind of just, put your stakeholders who stands where, and how do you want to communicate with them, right? So that's a great tool. The other tool that I talk about is it's called as the Eisenhower metrics, simpler value versus complexity. Right, that has been a great tool that has helped me not only from execution perspective, what is that must go now versus what should we can put moonshot projects, put them, that's something that requires higher complexity, but also the higher value. So I know that this is more a short long-term thing that I want to do versus things which are in low value but low complexity. Sometimes it could be even hygiene product topics like data privacy, security, infrastructure, scaling up. So I would say as part of your product roadmap, it has to kind of cover, and these and Moscow method, for example, again, for a product which you're doing 0 to 1, it kind of does not consider everything around your customer effort and all that, but it is still very contextual and a quick one to do. Then if I have to go into a go-to-market space again, here, I would say your stakeholder management is a very, very important aspect. But getting to know that how do I build my release plan, for example. So these are some tools and framework that I have extensively used and that I would recommend. I have also shared one article from HBR, which is a brilliant one, which talks about that if you have to change your strategy, you have to think very differently. You have to change the way you think. And guys, believe me, these frameworks that I talked about, mixed with your experiences that you're building, mixed with some of the aspects that I talk about, listen intently, observe, make notes, continue to think about a variety of things wherein look forward, or even look at, for example, imagine if you have to decide whether I want to buy X product for analytics versus that product for analytics. Now, if it is a large enterprise customer who's deciding that what is the product that I should buy, maybe for them, it is more about scale versus a startup like Jobs for Her. Probably for us, the cost matters the most, right? Because our needs may not be as diverse, as complex for a large enterprise, right? So a weighted average score is a brilliant tool, again, that I have found very, very useful because I used to lead a legacy product, and all the products across my company just loved it because it was a cash cow. So pushing anything out in that product was like one big deal for me because there were XY number of stakeholders whom I had to knock and say, hey guys, can I have your blessings? Can we just do this? So for me over there, if I'm doing something to solve a customer support problem, I know that, what is the average score that I need to give for weightage I need to give for their inputs versus maybe marketing really doesn't care so much. So that is another toolkit which I have found to be brilliant.
Great. I think this is really helpful, Malathi. And I would request Santoshi from our team to share the link on the chat with the audience for the HBR link, which Malathi was talking about, so that everyone can refer to it. And guys, please bookmark it as well. For your future reference that ways. So Malathi, we spoke in detail about user research, we spoke about data, we spoke about toolkits. Now it comes balanced, right? As a PM, we often get confused between finance and compliance issue, technology, debts. There are so many needs which keeps on coming from business, from strategy perspective. As a PM, you would be able to relate more that there is so much coming on the plate and they need to prioritize, right? So how do they, how do you suggest them to keep calm, be stress-free like Karthi, right? And have that, effective decision making in order to comply to all the needs and to cater to all the stakeholders, as you were emphasizing towards stakeholder management. I would want to request you to
First of all, Shivani, there is nothing like effective decision. Okay, that is probably the ideal state, but reality is there is no ideal decision, right? It is so I think I kind of talked a lot about the tools like, the Moscow tools, the prioritization, stakeholder management. I would kind of go a little bit now more on the people side of it, right? Yeah. See, a large way, given that it is such a cross-behavioral role, I think one of the primary tenet for a product manager is to build relationships, right? I have had been, and many of the organizations, for example, that I have been, the decision making is very consensus driven. That means if there are 5 people who are identified as the key decision maker to get that thing done out, a go or a no go decision, it is a very, I have been in a very consensus driven organizations, and forging those relationships for, kind of foresighting that has kind of helped me to do that, whether it is one-on-one relationship, understanding the context from where they are coming. See, a lot of times what happens is that if we are not well informed, if we do not build those bridges with our stakeholders, if we are not very deeply plugged into our, let's say, what a competition is doing versus what a market is doing versus our user, what our users are saying, could be that we might take decisions where we have those big blinders and we are not looking at a lot of different things, right? So first of all, especially this could be, a lot of people will relate to me who work in larger organization. Typically when you are building a product, you will have a upstream, you will have a downstream. So that means you have those many X number of people with all that web diagram that you were showing, right? PM in 2023. So that means there could be dependencies.
2023 PM is supposed to be like a Shaktiman, having like all the energies to drive the business 360 degrees. Yeah.
If I can give a metaphor, it could be like driving your car in old Delhi, where you can have scooters and rickshaws and autos and other cars coming from all directions, and you literally have to look 360 degrees.
Good metaphor. Yeah.
So anyway, one of the things that I would say when you're
folks, can you unmute and
guys, please mute yourself. Can I ask the admin to mute everyone, please? Sorry, really sorry, guys, for the disturbance. It happens. It's okay. So
yeah, that's fine. So one aspect which I was talking about was the relationship aspect, right? So as a product manager, it is really, really important to build that. The second aspect is that as a product manager, we kind of briefly touched upon that, right? That why are we doing something? So as a product manager, probably you are the only one who has that big picture, right? And it is important for you to align that with that shared vision with all your stakeholders, right? Because one of the key challenges that we have is that I'll talk about one use case where you have these upstream, downstream issue that I talked about. If the leadership, if those different teams do not have those aligned priorities, you will have issues in terms of alignment of when to release the feature, alignment in terms of giving the resources that are needed to get the things done, right? That is one part. So having that shared vision, making sure that you're investing the time in educating, getting everybody along, that is very important. The other aspect I would say is that you need to have also the perspective and establish some kind of a common ground, especially when you're working with your stakeholders, that whatever you're trying to do, why is it valuable to them? And, so that needs to be established. But at the same time, there are times when you cannot take everybody along, right? So for example, Amazon has this value where they say, agree to disagree, but commit. That means right. I do not agree I'm not getting married to you, so I don't have to really agree to everything that you're saying, right? But in the larger schema of a thing where the organization aspires to go, where at that context, that is the right thing to do, I still commit to it, and I'm still very channelized to get things out of the door on the timelines that we had agreed upon, right? That is important. And so all I'm trying to say is that you have to be and actually some of their, these weighted average score framework or the value versus complexity, again, depending upon what is the problem that you're solving, if your customer focus or how your customers treat the value for this particular feature or the problem that you're solving, if that also needs to be factored, right? So depending upon what stage of the product you are, what is the maturity model of the organization itself. See, in certain organizations who have been building products for 30 years, this is probably a very well-oiled machine, right? There are already processes in place. People are already aligned. The organizational values are very, I would say, focused and very mature in order to handle these kind of disruptions, right? You'll probably have a more horizontal team, which is probably working on, let's say, I'm going to solve for cryptocurrencies. That's the latest technology. So that means there is going to be a more horizontal team. So unfortunately, there are no silver bullets that I can talk about, but using some of these frameworks, building those relationships with your peers, getting that context, sense, sometimes you probably need to develop that sense of urgency to others, right? And that is why I said that you are on the driver's seat, that, hey, if I do not do the problem by this, then probably I'm already late in the game, right? And making everybody understand that why now, right? And that is why it kind of all goes back to the big picture that you're kind of painting, and people need to be with you on that ship to say that, yes, we will get this done. So yes, you will remain confused. Do I have enough data? My sales team is saying, please do this, versus my customer support. My founder says that, okay, one customer has reported, so drop everything else and this. First of all, the last thing which probably I really want to say is that one of the biggest skill that a product manager needs to really develop is to say no. Say no with empathy, say no with data, say no with the, and while at the same time, please ask them the questions that why is this so important now? Why do I need to drop? Right. Also,
so Malathi, could you just help us? So you have worked across different organizations, right? And
Yeah.
Stakeholder management is one of the key things you would have seen, that a person can be a great product manager, but not a very good at interpersonal skills at times in communication. There are people who face challenge with that, right? It would be very helpful. I would not request you to mention the name of the organization or anything as such. Any specific scenario wherein, you were working on a product, but you really found it very challenging, to kind of पूरा handle करना सारे के सारे stakeholders को, everyone is coming on your head, still keeping that smile on your face and figuring that out and getting the job done. One real life scenario would be very helpful. As you said, that art of storytelling is something which relates to the customer. It will relate to our audience as well. So I would like to request you to share one.
Sure, I can probably take a 1 hour session only on this. How many of them, right?
Maybe a follow-up session will be lined up with you if you allow your time.
Yeah, but maybe one thing which I really want to kind of talk about. So this was basically, I'll not get into the details of the, what we did.
Totally. A brief overview would help the audience,
Yeah. So this was basically, again, a legacy product. And as I said, I had so many different relatives to take care at work who had, very important say in what we can do in the product. So there was a very, I would not say like a red flag raised by our the security team, authentication team. But they said that in our product, we need to introduce, because the product was kind of connecting to the internet. So they said that we need to introduce some kind of an authentication. Now, before that, because they had an installation numbers and stuff like that we were validating, we were not doing explicit authentication. But we said, okay, but the challenge over there was that in the product, at least I think in 4 different places, when the customer is trying to do an activity, we had to tell them that, hey, you know what, we want you to log in. But at the same time, the demographics of the customers were greater than 65 years old. That was 80% of our customer base, right? So they will get worried. And this was quite a few years back. So the guidance from the marketing, the sales team, the customer support, not the customer support team did, but marketing and sales was that introducing this cannot impact our revenue, right? And the marketing was really worried because customers might go on to our competitors, right? But at the same time, this was becoming more and more hygiene coming from our data security team to say that this is something that we really need to have because we need to track our users. You guys will not believe that to introduce that login, the messaging, how frequently will we show it, to whom, how will we massage our, whole messaging, the screen, the experience. I think it took me about 7 months of both qualitative and quantitative research, plus doing a bunch of dry tests, right? Plus doing, synthesizing a lot of that data and kind of building that narrative to these key stakeholders for me to actually build the first full-fledged version of that requirement. It took me about 7 months. I kind of did probably 6 executive meetings before we got the final go-ahead to roll it out full-fledged. So
I'm sure you would have to have got like a lot of approvals and everything. Handling relatives at home is so difficult, as similar as the situation as you gave the analogy. So I think that's the best analogy to give.
Yeah. So I would say making it very visual, making them bring on to get your perspective, also understanding where are they coming from, because we were a product which was 98% year-on-year retention, that means we were
That's a great number.
right. So getting their perspective as to why are they really worried about, but at the same time not kind of losing out that how do we take care of our customers' concerns while they had this, we were introducing some new habits for them. So I think establishing that common ground and also sensitizing them that why is this important for us to do. So I would say, and there was one last thing in the same organization, my manager, as soon as I joined, she told me one thing, see, everybody is going to take a break for coffee. Everybody is going to take a break for lunch. So I do not want you to have lunch with the same person in a week.
You need to interact with multiple people that way. So yeah.
Build your relationships.
Yeah.
So guys, this is, no matter how many times I said, we all are people first. We all are human first, right?
Right.
And
human interaction creates a different level of bonding altogether.
Right.
You need
so building that, of course, while you may have the RASIs and the DASIs processes and the framework in place to help you during crisis, to get the work done, right? I mean, we still need to be able to move fast. But at the same time, I would say, do not ignore the aspect of your human building those relationships, because it really helps you to get the work done.
I so agree with you, Malathi, that RASI metrics has never helped me in life. What has helped me is the real human relationships. If I'll put an email, I'll not get a revert. I can't take the name of the company, but yeah, if I give a call, I can get things done just like in a jiffy that way. So yeah.
That person will ask, oh, did you send an email? Sorry, I missed that.
Very right. Yeah, so that's what happens. I think we have solved the problem for this lady also. She has to learn to say no to few things which comes to her life, right? So I think we can move forward. Effective customer support understanding. So you emphasized a lot about customer support as well. So at times it does happen, Malathi, you would relate that we are working on some P0 priorities basis our business goals, which are aligned, right? Maybe the stakeholders who have said this. But like, for example, it does happen, someone has tagged, like customer is tagged on Twitter or anything, some basic integration is coming to the PM and the PM gets frustrated. What is happening? Why should I solve this? How should I address this? So how to kind of address to those ad hoc customer queries which are coming in, and also keeping that in mind that I have certain priorities basis the business alignment which is there. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, see, I think one thing which I have always done, and again, I think I kind of go back to my very early days when I started using building products. Before you start, there always has to be certain guiding principles which are kind of the anchoring point as you kind of go ahead building your products, right? Which determines that you are looking to do this over X period of time, or these are the people that who are important stakeholders, right? I mean, you might use different frameworks, but any product, at least I have been doing with whatever product strategy that I put in, there has to be some kind of anchoring points. There have to be certain guiding principles, number one. Number two, customer support is one of the most important relative especially in the in-laws house, right? Because they are the ears and the eyes on the field, right? Your salespeople and your customer support people are the one who are the most common, who are like the first point of escalation for your customers, right? Of course, now we have social media, there are a lot of other channels, but and at the same time, so one of the things which I always did was that depending upon, again, if you are a legacy product, there is at least, I would say, 10 to 15% of the capacity was just kept to solve bugs. Right? I mean, if you look at any sprint planning or this thing that you look at it, it is not always about those new moonshot projects, emerging initiatives, or only revenue tied these things. There has to be a good balance between maintenance. If it is a product which is actively used by customers on these things, you have to take care of tech debt, and you have to factor in new features or incrementally improving new features, right? So what I would say is that depending upon the stage of the product that you are in, probably if it is a more mature product, you probably want to keep 30% of the bucket for the development time, so that constantly the issues that are being reported from your customer support team, you're constantly reviewing them, you're constantly prioritizing them. You are kind of building your knowledge as to, I remember that there was one particular issue. I think the first time it was reported, it was a P3. For people who don't know P3, it is one of the lowest priority. So it is those kind of tickets never make it to your product sprint backlog, right? Every sprint you'll say, okay, I have so many other P1s and the P2s that needs to be solved for. So over a period of time, we probably did not make a note of how big slowly the number of tickets that are getting added to that thing was becoming bigger. And then suddenly there was one of our, more slightly bigger enterprise organization which started to use it. And suddenly a ticket which was probably being reported or once or twice in a week, we suddenly had hundreds of tickets for that over a very period of short time. So what happened? Suddenly something was a P3 for many, many days, suddenly became a P1, right? So all I'm trying to say is that keep your eyes open to watch out for those leaky buckets, those issues, something which can become really big. But your customer support team, again, I would say, are the ears and eyes in the industry, right? For the target group for which you have built the product. So take them pretty seriously. And then, yeah, of course, you need to make sure that not only them, you are looking at all the social media channels, you are looking at the signals which are talking about, you're constantly reviewing the number of bugs that are being raised to say whether are you really shipping out a quality product. See, if you ship out a quality product, probably your customer support team is going to be really happy because they will not get so many issues.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. So it's a very, yeah.
Hey folks, sorry to cut you. 5:11. I know, Malathi, we can talk all night, and if you allow us, we are not going to let you go to your family in the evening. So probably, we will kind of, bring it to a closure today, and if need be, probably we can do a second session because it's not like any other session, right? I mean, we are going deep into all of these frameworks. So it's very important that, we kind of make time. It's not to cut you, but I just wanted to remind.
You're very right, Karthi, but you have just pitched in at the right time. I realized that we have gone 15 minutes more, but the session was interactive. So we have got to a point wherein we have closed on the session and we have taken up all the questions which were there from the users and the audience who have participated. So we have covered it all. One thing which we want to, understand from Malathi is that what is a key mantra for the best decision model making, like one key mantra which you would like to give to everyone in one line, simple, for everyone. So over to you, Malathi.
I think I would say whatever mental model it is, make sure that, you have the customer centricity at the heart of it. Because, the more focused on you are on what your customers are doing, what are they looking at them. So I think customer centricity is very, very important while you're keeping your mental model, whatever kind of decision as part of building up your product that you're doing. I think that's one thing that I would say.
Thank you, Malathi. I would like to take an opportunity to thank you on women in product community's behalf for giving your valuable insights, inputs on such an interactive session on Saturday evening. We are very much honored to have you. And I would also like to congratulate the entire team of women in product who are behind the scenes, who are there on the cameras right now, who have supported us in executing this. So kudos to all of the team members and to every one of us. And we would also like to thank all the men who are supporting women, in their families, and also the colleagues and the peers who are there. So thanks to all of you to join in and to share your questions, to share your queries, and to support women like us, because of course we are, because of our peers, right? Be it whichever gender it is, right? So in our community, we do promote people to join from whatever gender they are doing that way. So over to you, Karthi, if you want to say something. Yeah.
Thank you, Shivani and Malathi. We just didn't realize that 60 minutes flew by. And oh my God, I think we would have talked for another 180 minutes for sure, because there are so many things. In fact, Ajay just asked, what is the toughest mental model? I'm like, probably Malathi needs another hour for that. That's how many things are there. So one of the things that when we started brainstorming, we asked, there are so many things on the internet which is on the surface. It never goes deep. It's mostly around, it's scratching on the surface. So we wanted all the talks, at least in WIP talks, to be a little more nuanced and a little more deeper, so that it kind of, opens up much deeper layers. So you have started the tradition, Malathi, and thank you so much. This was much more nuanced, and a lot of questions were like, so what are we talking about? Which frameworks? And that kind of brings in the curiosity and inquisitiveness to go and actually go deeper into things. So we want to, they say it beautifully, where if you're thirsty, don't give them water, give them salt, which means you will be even more thirsty and you will go find the water. And that's exactly what you have done today. And thank you so much for spending your evening with us. And it's been incredible. I learned so much by just listening to you. I have my own notes and I'm going to wait for the lovely notes that are going to come from our teams as well. So yeah, with that, this has been an awesome inauguration. If I had a champagne, I'll just open it now.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I was just telling Shivani that, I played Holi this morning. We are playing a delayed Holi. So I was hoping that I don't come all red and blue and green in the thing. So I managed to.
No, you're beautiful as always. Come on, Malathi.
For celebrating Holi, you've given us such an insightful session, Malathi. So yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
That's
So
incredible.
first of all, thank you so much again, Karthi. And I really wish I had like even, 1% of the energy that you kind of have bring onto the table. But yeah, it has been always very, very, great to collaborate with you and the team. And I probably just want to reiterate, the one of the links that Shivani was sharing in the previous slide. Untool.co is a great link where you will find a bunch of different frameworks related to problem solving, system thinking, what kind of a communication should you do, decision making. So I would highly encourage everybody to go and read that. And guys, just make sure that your mental model is also partner to your measurement model, because if you are thinking more outcome based, you will do wonders in the roles that you're doing. So just kind of leave on that note.
Sure. Can we have a group picture together, guys? All of us in the frame?
Zoom fee.
Yes. Zoom fee. Yeah. I'll just stop sharing the screen. Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe the team can take like the entire, like everyone has their cameras on, right? Like let's take a group picture. Who is taking the
Yes.
picture? I think Devasmada and like other people are there. Let's take a picture. Yeah. Guys, let's do this. Has someone taken the picture? Oh wow, Jeshi's kid has also come
You
into
guys
the
want
space.
to do equity thing? Probably just bring everybody this thing, this year's this thing, embrace equity,
Oh, like that. Okay,
like that. Yeah.
awesome. Okay, who is taking the picture if you have both your hands
Who
there?
is taking the picture, guys?
Madhuri,
It
help
seems
us.
that we will be taking poses and no one is taking the picture. I'll feel
Yes,
bad.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Yes.
All right.
I think I have to remove you guys from spotlight. So just
Yeah, I can do that.
yeah. I have removed. Yes. One more as
I
well.
still-
Yeah, spotlight is gone.
Yeah.
Okay. 1, 2,
Please.
3. Okay, wait. Sorry. My keyboard is frozen. You have to give me. Ha! Weird. Okay, one more.
All right.
Nice.
Yay.
Having the victory.
Yes, one more. 1, 2, 3. Say samosa. Hey,
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining
Thank
in.
you, Malthi.
Have a
It's
great
been
weekend.
such a
Thank you,
wonderful
Malthi. Thank you.
evening. Yeah,
Thank you so much again, and would love to join in the next session, listening into the next speaker.
absolutely. Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. And
Thank
we
you,
will send
Karthik.
you the recording along with all the resources and notes that we have taken, so you wouldn't miss anything from today. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good one.